All right, I'm gonna continue with my pen introduction. So again, my name is Susan Schwartz. I am the parent of two daughters, both of them grown and out of the house. But they both attended PUSD schools, and they are now 21 and 25. And I started working with Pasadena Education Network in 2008. So it's been a while, it's been a minute. But we basically are a local nonprofit organization, independent of the district, but we do work with PUSD. And our main mission is really to help families participate in public education in the communities served by PUSD. So Pasadena, Altadena, and Sierra Madre. And we try to connect folks with the schools, with parents, families who have kids in the schools, and then also just sort of help you engage in a constructive way so that you can support your own child and all children ultimately. So that is me, and I'm going to ask Laura Diaz, my colleague, and then our other guests to introduce themselves briefly, and then we'll go to start the program.
Hello, my name is Laura Diaz-Allen. I've been with Penn for now 10 years. So I've grown up with Penn as my children have grown up. Now they are 14 and 16, and one of them is making the transition to high school. So I am learning about this even as I share with you.
Okay, Marcy, you want to go next?
Sure. Good evening. My name is Marisela Bramila, and I am currently one of the assistant principals at Pasadena High School. Before that, I was assistant principal at Blair Middle and High. And I think first and foremost, I have two high school kids, one in 9th grade and one in 11th grade. So one who's in the thick of it and one still finding her way since she never really got a real 9th grade year. So,
okay.
Learning right there too.
All right, thank you. Jennifer, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Higginbotham. I am the parent of two daughters, one a senior at Blair and the other a 10th grader at Blair.
Okay, Marie.
Hi, I am Marie Cantor. I am a former Penn board member and also a Penn ambassador. I have two sons at PHS in 9th grade and 11th grade.
And before we get to Kitty, I just want to point out that the interpretation icon is now at the bottom. It looks like a little globe down there, and you should need to choose your language. So you'll need to choose English if you're an English speaker, or Spanish if you're a Spanish speaker. Okay, Kitty, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Kitty Cahalan, and I have two high schoolers at Blair, and I have a 9th grader and an 11th grader. So we also have the 9th grader who had to figure out high school in the middle of the pandemic. But we have some experience with in-person school with the 11th grader.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Thank you all so much for being here. And so we're going to go ahead. I'll start sharing my screen in a moment. We do have the chat open. If you have a question or just something you want to comment, you want to jot down, you can do that. We are recording this, and we will be sharing the video link as well as the slides and some other resource links. So if we mention a resource or say something about it, or even put it in the chat, don't worry if you don't get it right away. We will send a follow-up email soon with all the links, including all the resources. So just be able to take it in, and we'll hope to get some time for questions and discussion towards the end. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Does that go? Come on, do this. Okay, so let's see. So, hello, high school. So this is our first time doing this program. We've done a variation on this for middle school and for kindergarten, but it's something new every time. So here we are. And we want to get started just with a little bit of an icebreaker. So I wanted to just kind of give people a moment to remember where it was that you went to high school, and what was your favorite class or activity at school. And I'm going to stop sharing for the moment to let's see. All right. And I'd like to ask our participants, our parents who are attending, who haven't already introduced themselves, if you would just say hello, and if you can say your name if you like, and where did you go to high school? Sarah, do you want to start? I see you.
Sure.
Camera.
I went to high school on the East Coast, and actually I went to two high schools. Now I remember it. I went to public high school in Weston, Connecticut, and then a private high school in Northfield, Vermont, and two very different experiences. But yeah, so
what was your favorite subject or your favorite teacher or activity? Something.
Well, I will say that in my public high school, I was a punk, and I was being really bratty, and I was failing algebra because I just refused to apply myself. So I had this awesome tutor who was a teacher from another school, and he would work with me after school, and I totally got algebra when that guy taught me. So I would say Mr. Jockers, that was his name, to much hilarity. He was awesome. And, you know, when I had the interpersonal learning, it totally worked with him, and he was a great teacher, and he didn't put up with any of my crap. So
Right.
He was a tutor. He was a teacher, but he was a tutor. So.
Great. Thank you. Cheryl, do you want to share?
Yes, my name is Sherelle Bennett.
Cheryl,
and I
sorry.
have, my grandson will be attending John Muir. He'll be a 9th grader. And my favorite subjects, and Lord knows you're testing me, that's going way back. I believe it was math, until I remember hitting trigonometry, and I said, that's can't seem to get that, couldn't master that one. And I was involved in all of the activity, you know, all the clubs and things like that, cheerleader and stuff. I went to Woodrow Wilson High School, which is just outside of Pasadena in El Sereno. And at that time, we were, me and another girlfriend of mine, we were the first Black cheerleaders at the school, because it was predominantly Hispanic and Caucasian at that time. So we were the first Black cheerleaders. I think there were only 18 Blacks in the school at that time. So we were history makers and everything. So I really enjoyed being in all the clubs and cheerleading and all that stuff, and math, like I said, until I hit trigonometry. And I hit a wall.
We all have our walls. Well, thank you for sharing. And then I'm Malike. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Are you able to share? I saw you were in a car, so if it's not possible, that's okay. Okay. Feel free to jump in later if you're able to, but that's fine. So I'm going to go back just for a moment to my screen. Oops, let's see, I'm going here. There we go. All right, so the other thing I wanted to just sort of talk about a little bit is, you know, we have our own experiences, we have our own hopes and dreams and ideas, but our children are not us. So, or our grandchildren, as the case may be. So as you probably come to notice by now, your children share some of your likes and dislikes, but they also have their own interests, their own strengths and weaknesses, which may be different from yours. And so keep just something to keep in mind as you think about what you and they might want from their high school experience, and as you think about what kinds of support they might need for that. And yeah, let's see, I seem to be paused here. See. Well, my thing is not advancing here for some reason, but I'm going to say, just, you know, as a question, what is something that you really hope that your child or grandchild will be getting out of their high school experience? Is there anything in particular that you're particularly thinking about that you hope they experience in high school?
I will say, I hope my daughter doesn't get turned off, you know, by learning and academics. I hope that, you know, that she becomes a person who's still intellectually curious and, you know, that the fun isn't drained out of learning by the high school experience. I hope she's, sort of invigorated and challenged and interested, and of course, becomes a good citizen and a good person. So that's what I'm interested in for high school.
Thanks. How about you, Sherelle? Dancing around. Sherelle, are you still with us? Does anybody else? Lauren McNulty, I see you have joined us. We're just sort of doing a little bit of sharing about what we're hoping for our kids when they get to high school. And so feel free to jump in and just say a few words about what you've got in mind.
Yeah, I can share.
Please.
Yeah, so my name shows up as Malachi because that's my daughter, Malika, who's going to be in high school. She changed my Zoom name. This is, my name is Anusha.
Anusha.
And she's going to start high school PHS this coming year. What I hope for her is that she finds herself. Like, I think PHS she's in Math Academy, and, there's also this amazing arts program at PHS. So I hope she's able to, just like what the other person shared, that, she's able to intellectually be challenged and also explore and enhance her passion for art. So, and French, and it's just sounds so amazing. So, yeah.
That's an exciting step.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. I see we have one more person who has just joined us, Rachel. And we're just introducing ourselves very briefly. Oh, okay. So if you'd like to unmute and just sort of say, what is it that you're hoping that your child will get, what kind of experience they will have from high school?
Oh, okay. Well, okay, you guys have to be quiet now. I have two kids, both going to Marshall next year for the first time. One will be a freshman and the other will be a senior. And I think what I really want for my younger daughter, she'll be there for 4 years. I just want her to find a community that she feels comfortable in. Of course, I want good teachers. I want her to have the opportunity to do things she wants to do. I don't want her to be too restricted in classes that she can take, but I know that's probably my thing. She's not so worried about that. She's looking forward to it. And I think really mostly I just want a place for her to find someone that she likes being with, a group of kids she likes being with.
That's great. Thank you.
And then, my older daughter, she will be a senior. And she only just started public school this past year, which is a terrible time, obviously. Both of my kids were homeschooled previously. And so she just has the 1 year left, and I want her to be able to take part in as much of the dramatic productions as she can. She's really interested in pursuing theater production and specifically costuming in college. My younger daughter is being promoted from Elliott this year, and she's been there for 1.5 years now, and liked it, but didn't get enough of it because of the pandemic. So I just really want them to find a community and then have the opportunity to pursue the things they want to do.
Great.
So.
All right. Thank you so much.
Sure.
I'm going to go on and just go back to see if I can get back to my slideshow. Let's see here. So basically what we're going to do next is we're going to talk a little bit about what's new, what's different about high school versus middle school. And, for everybody, I think hopefully next fall will be new, just because even if it's not completely new to people, we'll be back on campus, and that's going to be a transition for everybody. Then we're going to really dive into what our teens need from us, and that's kind of the heart of our our program tonight. So just in terms of emotional support, and in terms of helping to get them and just to get and stay organized. And then we'll talk a little bit about some resources, some communication tools that we as parents or caregivers can use, and also that our students will learn to use, hopefully, and increasingly be able to advocate for themselves and communicate for themselves. And then we'll wrap up with some questions and time for discussion. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit very briefly about what's new, what's different about high school. So, in some ways, I think high school is a little bit more like middle school than middle school is like elementary, in the sense that you have, the different classes and different teachers and that kind of vibe. But it's larger, and it's a larger campus. The class sizes may be larger. There are going to be new teachers, of course, and also just sort of more demanding academic work. And as that workload is increasing, also the grades start to count. So particularly, if you have and your child has aspirations for college, or even just that you want to have them have the most options possible, you need to pay attention to grades. They need to pay attention to grades in a way that they didn't have to before. And then obviously, as with any transition, they're going from being the big kid on campus to being the little kid, the youngest freshman. Although obviously not in every case if you've got somebody coming in as a senior. But overall, the main thing is really just that, they have greater independence and more responsibility. And they're sort of expected to handle more with a little bit less hand-holding than was the case in middle school. And this is not to say that there aren't resources, but you may need to actually ask for those resources rather than somebody coming and saying, here's what you need. I'm going to turn it over to Laura, who's going to talk a little bit about how our teens are changing in this stage of life. So Laura, go ahead.
All right. So we have a couple pictures here to remind us how much kids change from the time they are freshmen to the time that they graduate from high school. We can usually just see their outside, right? Here we have these little kids all hanging together, and then hopefully by the end of high school, they're bigger, taller, more confident, ready to conquer the world. So they're growing a lot during these years. My kids are both already taller than me, and one hasn't even started high school. And you will notice, if you haven't been through this before, that they need a lot of food and they need a lot of sleep. And if they're not getting enough sleep because they're studying, they often catch up on the weekends, and you just can't wake them up. So that's just something to keep in mind. The other thing to think about is that they are thinking more abstractly than before. So they're now able to take things like algebra that, has them thinking about sort of abstract concepts. And they're also thinking about how the world could be, not just how it is. And, sometimes kind of driving us crazy with questions about like, how come this isn't this way? And that's not fair and whatnot. So that's something that you'll see. And the other one that I know we remember from being that age is that friends become really, really important. Our social group is important. They're not more important than family. Family still matters, but I know to a parent, sometimes it can feel like, the friends are more important. So those are like three major things that you're going to see in your kids. Next one. Now, for all that they're changing outwardly, getting taller and, more able to have these intellectual conversations, there's also a lot going on inside. So one of the things that I learned a few years ago that I think is fascinating is that their brains are changing a lot during this time, and their brain continues to develop through birth to, until later. It grows from the back to the front, so that first we learn how to do things like sleep and stay awake, and then to, and breathe. And eventually we crawl and walk, and then we start talking. Those are all things that are happening. Now in high school, this part, the cortex, they're learning to associate increasingly complex ideas. Eventually, the front part of the brain, it's right here, the prefrontal cortex, will turn them into responsible adults, right? That's what we hope. They will be able to do things like show up to places on time and manage their money and not fight with people on Facebook. You know, things that are challenging still for some of us, but they will get better at those things. In the meantime, there's just a lot going on and they still need our help because they're not quite there. And the demands of school are sometimes a little bit more than they can handle on their own. So one of the things that we talk about is that we need parents to support them through scaffolding. So it basically is the idea that we're building support structures around them as they get stronger. And if you have questions about this, please let me know. At the end, we'll talk more about that. So that's just something that we need to think about. Let's see, what do we have next?
Did you want to say something about the emotional part of the brain, that last?
Yeah, oh yeah. You may also have noticed already that teenagers are emotional, right? Sometimes more so than they were when they were younger. And things that maybe would not have faced them before now can lead to a meltdown. Whether it's just, a plan that fell through or a friendship that's not going like they want to, they can get really overwhelmed. So that's another place where we parents can help to support them by staying calm when they are not, by being wise when they have no idea what to expect. So that's going to be a really important role for us as they transition through high school. Did I forget anything else?
I think that those were the main points. So we're going to transition to what it is that they need from us. And Laura mentioned the word scaffolding, and you can think of it in a really basic, one way is to think about the scaffolding on the side of a building that's under construction, that's helping to hold it up, and people can climb up there and lay bricks and whatever else to build this building. Another way to think about it is like a young tree that has a stake helping to support it until it gets strong enough to stand on its own. But so whatever metaphor you like, the basic idea is that they need some support, but the whole idea of that support is not to do things for them, but to just sort of help to guide or catch them a little bit and just keep them on track, so that with the idea that eventually they will be able to do more of these things for themselves. So I'm going to sort of shift to the first set of things that we talked about, that we said we would talk about rather, which is the sort of emotional support, what they need from us in terms of their emotions and their feelings and their sense of self. So Laura, do you want to sort of run through this? And I think this is where we're going to ask our guests, our parents and teacher to share a little bit about their perspectives and experiences and give some examples. But Laura, I'll let you take this part.
Yeah. So aside from the, kind of tangible things that we can do for kids, and we're going to get to that in a minute, I think one of the things that our kids really need from us, and sometimes we may forget because they seem so adult in some ways, and they don't always seek us out, right? Sometimes they, in fact, push us away. But what they always need is just the knowledge that we love them and that we believe in them, right? And that we are confident that they can do things on their own, even with a little help, but that they will do fine. So again, we're trying to build confidence and self-esteem. And one of the things that kids this age need is not kind of the general thing, but, oh, you're great, that we may have said to our kids when they were little, but just very specific things like, you know what, I saw how hard you studied for that test. I know it was really hard, but you stuck with it and you gave it your best. I'm really proud of you. Or, you know what, thank you so much for making that meal last night. It was delicious. And no, I can't believe how well you're cooking now. So just very specific things to let them know that we really care about them and that we can see them growing. The other one is, and this one's a little tricky. Ask them questions about their lives that are specific. Sometimes we get stuck, and I know I do, asking questions about school only, right? And it's not always with good results, especially if they've had a bad day or if they're not feeling very confident about school. But we can ask very specific questions like, so how was lunch today? Or who'd you sit with? Or what, something that, can get us talking about maybe school, but not, in a sort of indirect way. Or ask them about the music that they're listening to. Just give them opportunities to reveal things about themselves that they're willing to. And then listen. I have a hard time with this one because sometimes I'll ask a question like, what are you watching? And then they tell me about the show that they're watching and I really don't want to know. It's so not my interest, but I try to care because they care. So to listen to them. And when they're struggling with what they're feeling, help them with suggestions that might help them understand their feelings a little bit better. For example, okay, I see that you're a little conflicted. You want to go see your friends, but you also want to do well on this test and you don't know what to do, just to kind of point out the thing that they're feeling, but maybe they haven't quite digested. And also give them opportunities to demonstrate their competence in whatever area they are feeling confident. So again, if school is not their strength right now, but they're really good at the arts or dancing, or even if they're a really good friend, just make sure you point that out so that all of their self-worth is not wrapped up in school. And that's all you ever talk about. And then the other one is to just support them a little bit, just through tangible little things like, they're studying and you drop off an apple just because, you want them to eat healthy and, they're hungry. So you drop off an apple, or, you ask them if you can take one of their chores because you know that they have a final tomorrow. Little things that will help them feel some sense of relief. And then last but not least, respect their privacy. I know this is hard for us as parents because we care so much and we want to know what they're up to and we want to make sure they're not in trouble. But I think, remembering that we appreciated our privacy at that age and that our kids need it, and balancing that out with our need to communicate and to tell them what to do, I think that's helpful. I have them put up these things on their door to let me know if they are doing classes or if they're on a break. I knock on their door. And we have some rules around how and when I will be in their bedroom. That I think work for both of us. So just a little thought that that is important to them at this age. Okay.
And I'd like to just open it up and ask Ms. Brambilla, Kitty, Marie, Jennifer, if you have any examples of things like that from your own experience that you'd like to share.
I'll go, if that's okay.
Sure.
What Laura said about snacks and, taking on kid chores every now and then, I could say, so my older one is in the IB diploma program, which means he's taking essentially 7 college prep courses as a junior in high school. And it's a very, very, very difficult program. And right now he's preparing all the year-end projects, and he has the test, the IB test. They also take AP tests. And so he's extremely, extremely stressed out. It's been a very difficult year with the pandemic. He's back 2 days a week, but then they had state testing. So he's stressed out. So we go in, and if he's grouchy, the first thing I do is ask if he needs something to eat. So that is exactly what, have you eaten? Do you need me to bring you something? I'll bring you a treat. Do you want some ice cream? And then we also rotate through who does dishes. We're going to handle your dishes tonight, so you can, take that off of your plate. And I can see that produces visible relief when he sees me coming in to support rather than to harangue him about where he is, because even though I'm just hoping to support him, when I ask that, it just tends to ring as, you know, mom's bugging me about my work and she doesn't think I'm doing enough. So I can second what Laura said about those things.
Absolutely. How about Marie? I'm not seeing everybody's faces on the screen, but I'm leaving the points that they put up on the shared screen just so that we can keep them in mind. But anybody else want to chime in with either an example or a perspective on
go.
any of these?
I think it's really important to find that balance between being their parent and encouraging their independence. And I think one good way to do that is I get summaries from the Aries parent portal every Friday. So that gives me a good snapshot of how the week has gone, if they have any missing assignments, if their grades are slipping. And then I let them know, you know, I noticed you had a missing assignment. You might want to talk to your teacher about that. And that teaches them as well to reach out and let people know what their needs are. You know, if they missed an assignment, because a lot of times my older son does the assignments and doesn't turn them in. So, you know, it's to remind him, first of all, that you need to turn everything in, especially if you did the work, but advocate for yourself, you know, and talk to your teacher. I'm not going to do it for you. You know, so that kind of thing. When he first started high school, and we were getting the summaries from Parent Portal, and we would let him know, he would get very upset with us and say, why are you on my back? Why are you in my business? You know, and we had to remind him, you're a child still. And also, I think a good thing is to remind them of what their goals are. He is college bound, and he wants to do great things. And just to let him know, you know, you want to make sure to keep your grades up and you want to make sure to get credit for your work. So that's a good way to do that. And let him know that we are there for him. You know, we do encourage independence where we can and where it's appropriate, but we are still their parents.
Yeah, thank you. That's great. Anybody else have anything they wanted to chime in with on this before we go on?
I just wanted to say that it seems so important to encourage and train kids to be advocates for themselves. So if there's a late assignment, something they didn't get in on time, coaching them on how to contact their teacher and how to ask for, you know, an extension if they need it, or see if they can turn it in late and get at least partial credit. But learning those skills becomes extremely important. I can tell as my senior has been applying to college and is getting ready to go on to college. She had to do all that stuff herself. I mean, she had to do the applications. It's really something that becomes a very important skill senior year and beyond. So anything that we can do to help them learn how to advocate for themselves is, it seems to be very important for long-term success.
Yeah, I often found that the difference between saying, you know, coming across as you need to do this and this and this, as opposed to this is the goal, as Marie said, you know, this is your goal, you know, what questions do you have? Do you have any questions? You know, are they questions for me? Are they questions that you need to ask a counselor or this teacher? And that, so as you say, kind of not giving it to them, but also just letting them know that it's available, but that they have to ask and they have to, you know, for what they need.
I just want to add that confidence and self-esteem build from doing the thing, you know, and doing it well and knowing you can do it, as opposed to someone telling you, oh, you're so great. So even though earlier I said, yes, give them praise and specific praise when they've done something, it's the doing the thing and getting over it that helps them feel, you know, good about themselves, not necessarily what we say, because at this age, they know when they're not good at something, regardless of what we tell them. So again, just to reiterate the point that giving them opportunities to stretch themselves and to advocate for themselves is a really good thing also for their own self-worth, not just their grades.
And I wanted to add one other thing real quick, that I found that when my kids are in a place where they're being really hard on themselves, giving them a break or telling them, we had a day where one of my kids was just completely overwhelmed and panicky and basically having an anxiety attack. And I said, stop working, go to bed. I normally, what Jennifer says about advocating for themselves, but I said, you've overstretched yourself. I'm going to tell your teachers that you're not in a good place right now. And then have you can get in touch with them again, but just let them know. And the teachers I have to remind my kids, their teachers want you to succeed. They care about you. They care about your learning. They're not punishing you. And all of them were like, of course, he can, get back to it when he's there. Like, this has been an incredibly stressful time, but even normally, I sometimes do have to remind my kids it's okay to take a step back. If you can't get this assignment in on time, or you can't get it done at all, don't kill yourself over this. This is high school, and we don't expect perfection. And that took a huge load off of his mind that night, just being able to go to bed with my permission instead of thinking that he had to keep grinding away, even though his brain had locked up.
That's great.
One of the things that
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, I have another tip to share. I have 2 kids, so it's usually the 4 of us all the time. If you can get your kids alone one-on-one, they will tell you all kinds of things. My older son is really kind of quiet and keeps to himself, but if I take him out on a date and we get ramen, he will just tell me everything about what's going on in his social circle, what's going on in his emotional world. We have an opportunity to talk about his little brother who is autistic. It really gives them space to share who they are without judgment from the rest of the family. It's been really valuable, and we happened upon that by accident. So if you can make an effort to do that, that's a great thing.
Oh, that's a great tip. It sounded like Sherelle, was that you? Somebody had a question or a comment to
Oh,
add?
no, yeah, I was just going to say, because something that you guys may not experience that I experienced, because my grandson has an IEP, so he's not extreme special needs, but more or less needs a lot of encouragement, structure, and things like that. And I think Laura had talked about, he's definitely not just telling him he's good, but I think when he does his work himself and everything, that certainly builds on him, getting him more confidence, and then telling him you did such a great job, instead of the more or less, oh, come on, you could do it, those kinds of things,
Mhm.
But when he does his work, he can see that he has that confidence of being able to do it. We just, because he's now back in school 2 days a week, we just started this thing of him cooking dinner on a Thursday, and he's done it now for 3 weeks. And I mean, he's been fantastic at it. He's made his own, he's made meals for the family. He's been very creative about it, and he takes a lot of pride in doing that. And I try to, remind him about that. See, the same things happen when you do your work, in school. All of the slides and everything that you were talking about, the organization and everything like that, that's that's mine all over, what I'm hoping to being able to develop with him in school and everything. And I've got another issue too of being able, his social friends and stuff, how are you getting him to open up more about that? Because again, like mine is typical, likes to spend a lot of time playing video games, and you get concerned with the number of people he's talking to out there and stuff. And it seems to be this year, there hasn't been a lot of kids coming over, so we're not aware of who his friends are anymore, those kinds of things. So trying to get him to open up and talk about those kinds of things, it could be challenging and everything. And I like what Marie's suggestion, with, getting them by himself and, and things like that. Maybe he might open up a little bit more.
Yeah.
Because he's about to be 14, and going into high school and
Yeah.
everything. And so this is, it's very interesting.
Well, you brought something up which we didn't really include in this section about the social life and the friends, and that's huge, obviously. I think what I'd like to do though is I'd like to just make sure we get to the organizational tips for how to help kids be organized and manage themselves, and then hopefully maybe after that when we come back for questions at the end, if anybody has anything in particular to offer with regards to the socialization stuff, let's make a note to come back to that. I'm gonna go on though with to the next thing that they need from us, which is help practicing their basic organizational skills. So again, Laura's going to just kind of run through this, and then I'd like to ask our guests to jump in with any examples or perspectives that they have on these things.
All right. So by the time your child reaches high school, you may be concerned that, the boat has sailed, that if they're not organized, that's just the way they're going to be. But that is not true. Remember, their brains are still growing and organizing, right? So it's a fine time to teach them how to organize themselves. So here are some basic things that we can help our kids with. One is just plan a week with them. Sunday nights might be a time when the family comes together and just discusses what everybody's up to that week. So assignments, projects, rides, especially as kids get more involved in after-school activities, and whether they're not driving yet and they need a ride, or they are driving and you need to share a car. There's a lot that has to be managed. So a calendar and some time to talk about what's happening is a really useful thing. The other one is cleaning out your bags together. I don't know what your purse looks like, but mine is a nightmare. And every week I have to go through it and I have to put things back where they belong. And I try to do this so that my kids can see me. Again, being humble about the fact that I'm not the most organized person in the world, but that I'm making time to do it. And the idea is that if I'm cleaning out my purse and they're cleaning out their backpack, it will become a habit, right? Now we're mostly online and there haven't been a lot of papers, but I know in the past we used to get papers that just kind of sat there in the backpack and never came out, or maybe a PE uniform that was really past their laundry day that needed to come out. So this is a really useful thing to do. Help them unlearn procrastination. Some people, adults and kids alike, leave things until the last minute, and it's not a great thing to do, especially as their schedules get really full. And by the time they decide they're going to now, just totally just go through everything and learn it at once, well, now they have 7 things to do that for, and they can't. There's just not enough time. Set expectations and consequences. I think this is really important. Sometimes we don't communicate our expectations and our values with our kids, and then we're disappointed when they have no idea what they were and they break them. So, for example, an expectation might be that no matter what, we tell the truth, right? That they come and they tell me about what's going on so we can work through it. Or an expectation might be that they get up on their own in the morning and get ready for bed, and for school, and I don't have to help them. Or that they go to sleep at a certain time so they can in fact get up early. And then set up consequences for, okay, what happens when you consistently do not meet that expectation, or when you don't meet it in a big way, right? Like when you sleep through your alarm and now you're late and now you miss your final. What happens? In that case, it's a natural consequence, but there are other times when we can set up natural consequences. Don't bail them out. I know we talked about occasionally when they're just completely overwhelmed. It is a nice gesture to take on some of their chores or just excuse them from something. But in general, it's a good idea to let them experience small failures so that they can learn from them, right? And then last is teach them organizational tools. And we'll hopefully talk a little bit more about this with the help of the group. But things like, you know, running a calendar, using your phone calendar app to plan things. I know if I don't have things on my phone or on my calendar or my computer, they do not exist. So using that feature, using the alarm on the phone, using a board to write down the things that you have to do, maybe setting out your clothes the night before. Just little things that we know will help them out now and in the future. So those are some ideas.
Yeah, and if anybody, again, Jennifer, Kitty, Marie, Marcy, if you have any examples or perspectives on any of these
things that you're doing or are trying to do.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
No, that's okay. Something that I'd like to share, actually, I got from Kitty. So my little side note there is to find someone that you can kind of steal some ideas from, you know, knowing that they might not always work with your own kid, but I think I've stolen stuff from Kitty occasionally, you know, in some late, like, frustrated chats that I've had with her. But you know, my oldest is not very organized, and, you know, obviously taking on the IB program, that just wasn't going to fly. And Kitty was showing, I think, a system that she was using, and I was like, well, let me try this. And what was interesting is that Kitty's like, we ended up abandoning that system, but it actually really worked for my son. Like, you know, and it was just, you know, these boards, we do Post-it notes for everything that he has to do by subject with due dates. And now because of Canvas, the exact time that they have to turn them in, because we missed a few because they were due at 8:30 and not 11:59 at night, you know. So like, and we just prioritize them. And then what we do, everything that needs to get done that night gets a star, everything that can wait till tomorrow gets a dot, right? And it just turned out to be such a simple system, and we did actually do it together for quite a while. So this is where, you know, you have to kind of balance that bailing out a little bit. I think with the pandemic, you know, the kids relied on me a lot more to find, like, where is it me overstepping in their work, and where is it me just talking through their work with them, because they need another human to speak to about what they're supposed to be doing, right? So, but it turned out to be really a really good system for him. So I tried it with my daughter, thinking, oh, it worked once. It went down in flames with my daughter, and she ended up going with a Google Calendar. So I think that's the other thing is, you know, realizing that not one system works for every kid, even your own kids, even from the same, you know, the same household, and trying things out and scrapping them if they don't work, asking a friend, a fellow parent, and trying some more stuff, but just kind of keep working until you find the solution that works. So thank you, Kitty.
You're welcome. It's kind of an honor that Marcy, of all people, who's our, when she was at Blair, she was our guru of all things. So she stole an idea from me. I feel so honored by that. And the Post-it system did not work for us after a while. My younger one does not want me to have anything to do with his homework. So my husband is the one who has to sort of keep up with that. My older one and I came up with a Google spreadsheet, and we share it. And it's just an accountability system so that we are both plugged into the same tool, and I can see if he's turned stuff in, and he can see what he's got coming up. And it's worked really well because we can both do it kind of simultaneously, and I can update it, or he can update it whenever we want. So that's worked. Like, shared tools like that are really useful.
Yeah. Laura, did you want to add anything? Or it looks like you were.
Yeah. So my kids and I are very visual. So if something is put away, it does not exist as far as I'm concerned, right? And so things like having a spot where the backpack always goes, or in this case, the mask, hanging on the door handle, things that we were trying to do when they started kindergarten. Now we're revisiting, because even though they're older and they're so much smarter, sometimes they're just kind of space cadets. They're just thinking about something else and they forget the thing. And so then you have to go back and now you're late. So things are where we can see them, and always ideally in the same spot. We've even had to revisit like what you do first and second and third just to get ready in the morning, because for some reason I had kids wandering around the house who had not brushed their teeth or who had not put on one sock, and they were chatting away about something else. So we've had to revisit these basic things and introduce some kind of order for them. And now that we are going back into the world, as opposed to staying home in our pajamas all day, I think these things are going to be even more important, right? So that has worked. At some point, one of my children had gotten so behind in school that it seemed extremely overwhelming, and we didn't know how we were going to motivate him and how we were going to organize things. And one thing that we did that seems crazy is we actually gave him a bell that he had from when he was little, from his musical set. And every time he completed an assignment on the list that we had made, he rang the bell, and one of us would rush to his bedroom and give him lots of praise and sign off on the assignment. And so it's a little embarrassing, but I swear it got us through that rough spot. If I had had candy to throw at him, I probably would have. So that worked. What else? I'm trying to think now of all the things.
Well, Marie mentioned something about checking on the Friday, getting the notifications sort of.
Oh, yeah.
And I think with that, I'm actually going to go, maybe I'm just going to go to the next slide, which is just sort of tools to help you stay on top of things.
Yes.
That kind of is a good segue to that. So you want to start with that, talking about that a little bit?
So before we had Canvas, to anyone that's new to the district, before we had Canvas, ways of communicating with teachers and lots of systems in which, assignments were kept and whatnot. And now everything seems to be in one place on Canvas, as far as I can tell, at least for my kids. So it's actually become a lot easier to manage things. So one thing that I highly recommend is, if you don't already have a parent portal account, please get one. If you're not on Canvas, get on it. It took me too long to get on it. I did not think I had to manage my children because I didn't have to before. And with the pandemic, they really needed it. So there are ways to go in and do things like ask it to tell you every Friday how your children are doing, or select something so you get a notification when their grades drop below a certain point. We optimistically picked a B, and then I got lots of communications for a little while. Sorry about that.
Nope, they're coming after you now.
Probably. So I encourage you to go on Canvas and play around and see what it allows you to do, because we've found that really, really helpful. So I go on it, I check it, they go on it and check it. And I try not to go in and say, oh my God, I see that you haven't done this thing. It's more like, so Canvas is telling me that you haven't turned in this assignment. Do you want to check and see if there's something going on? Because sometimes there is something going on, and other times they just forgot to submit it or whatever it might be. So I'm using it as more of a, oh, isn't that interesting? Tell me more kind of way of checking on them. You should know, and maybe Marcy can tell us a little bit more about this, that Canvas and Parent Portal are not the same. Sometimes some things are updated on Canvas, but not on Parent Portal. And at least one of my children's teachers goes straight to Parent Portal and is not on Canvas. And so I have to check Parent Portal first on that. So again, it's a way to, you have to check both and then talk to your children about what you're seeing. Don't assume that what you're seeing is the final grade or the most updated thing, but it's a good way to start a conversation.
Yeah. Well, let's turn it over to you, Marcy, if you want to kind of just go through some of those basic tools that are available, particularly at high school students, that parents should be aware of.
Absolutely. So yes, Laura has an excellent point about Canvas, the Canvas Aries integration. So our main student information system is Aries. So that parent portal. So that will be the permanent system that will always and forever be around. That's where our grades are turned in, and that's technically where the grade book is supposed to be kept. And pre-pandemic, that's really where you found everything: attendance, so you can find unofficial transcripts there, test scores, everything that you would want to know, you could find there. When we went to the pandemic and Canvas became our learning management system, it came with a grade book, which actually is super convenient and super helpful. The problem is, and this is I think what Laura was getting at, is that for some teachers, that didn't sync seamlessly. It was supposed to, like, teachers have a function where they could just tell Canvas to sync their grade books straight to Aries. And for some reason, we're not super certain how or why, some teachers, it just wasn't seamless. And it was altering the grades a little bit. It was changing assignments a little bit, like all sorts of little wonky things were happening. So the complicated result of that is that exactly what Laura says, you have to ask the teacher, is the accurate grade kept in Aries parent portal, or is the accurate grade being kept in Canvas? Canvas also actually has some, so that's my first plug, is absolutely 100% Aries parent portal, it's a must have. Now Canvas actually has some really great features that lets you know what's missing right away. Now you do have that observer account, and you have to email whoever's housing it at your school. Like, so for example, at my school, like I will email parents if they ask me for it, but your student needs to log into Canvas, and they go to their settings and they get what's called a pairing code. And they use that pairing code and they give it to their parents in order for them to observe everything that happens on Canvas. So I have that in exactly what Laura said. You can see all of the assignments that are turned in. You could see which ones were turned in late, which ones are still missing, what grades were given, upcoming deadlines. It's all in there. What I do, and I'm just going to be honest, and this really depends on the relationship you have with your kids and how open they are. Like mine, I just know that when it comes to school, they don't have a lot of wiggle room. Like I actually just have their passwords to their accounts. So I go directly into their Canvas, and I will just look myself. But I know that's an uncomfortable space for some parents, so I don't recommend it for everyone. The parent observer, I think, is fine. So those are two, I think, the most important things that you could have. I also want to strongly recommend that when you do get to the school, like, and I know we had this at Blair, and my kids are currently at Blair, and we have this at Pasadena. Every school does. Find out what their communication systems are, because some of them are using constant contact, like the e-blast. Some of them do s'mores, where the principal's sending out like a newsletter. Some of them are just pushing out by email. I would find out what are every single method of communication that the school uses to push information out. One of the things that we've learned that's been very hard for us, short of smoke signals, sometimes we don't really even know how else to get information out to our families. Like, we're like, carrier pigeon. But we've added ways to get information out to our families. But even then, we still know we miss some. Emails are bad. Phone numbers change. So I would say, make sure that when you get to the school, ask, what do I need to be signed up for? What is the newsletter? What is the social media website? What is the Instagram? What is the Facebook? And get yourself signed up to all of that. Is there a bulletin that comes out? Make sure that you don't have restrictions on your accounts. Some families will say, I never get the principal's message. I don't know why I never get his email. But then when I go into their Blackboard Connect account, which is how we send out the phone blast, it shows that the parent put a restriction on and said that they didn't want the communication coming to them. Now, it may have been like a little privacy box that they checked off many, many moons ago when they registered their child, not thinking that there was going to be a consequence for that little check mark, 5 years down the line. So you want to make sure that you've allowed the school access to send you information by email and by phone. I think those are super, super important. But if I walk away and not say this, I would have to say like the most important thing that I think when it comes to working with the school and communication is always remember that your first line of defense when it comes to your kids is always the teacher. You know, sometimes like we love our kids and our teachers upset us sometimes. I know that if I'm as a staff member, I'm sure I upset parents too, you know, I get that. And I think what I always tell parents is just remember that admin is kind of your middleman. And we sometimes clog up the process. Like, so when you know that there's like an immediate need with your child is, you know, to always go straight, start with the teacher, email them directly. If you're not comfortable by email, call the school and leave a message. They'll send the email or put a message in their box. If you, your next line of defense, if you're finding that the problem is more broad than just one teacher, you know, obviously you go to the school counselor. So that's the person that you want to know who they are. You want to know how to contact them, because that's the person who's going to keep an eye on graduation, on college going requirements. And if your child is having any kind of trouble at all, they can help organize supports for them. Whatever the type of supports are, they are great at finding resources. And then of course, then, you know, then is your admin when you're not getting the results that you need really from the support staff that's there. Then of course, definitely, you know, go to the administrators. I do find a lot of times people will start with the principal, and I love our principals, but they frequently get hundreds and hundreds of emails a day. So it will definitely sometimes be the slower to respond when you have an immediate need for your child. So, you know, again, and I find that our teachers across the board at both schools that I've been at do really want to help. And sometimes even when they upset you. So sorry, I talked a lot, but you know.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a lot of good information. I am actually going to jump us to questions and discussion time. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link in the chat in just a moment with a participant evaluation that it's very short, but we'd appreciate your filling it out. This is the first time we've offered this particular program, so we really love getting the specific feedback, any that you might have. But I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing first. And then I am going to really just kind of open it up to questions. So we do have the chat open if you want to put it in the chat, but we're a small group, so also feel free to just kind of unmute yourself and ask a question, and we'll take it from there.
Susan?
Yeah.
Sorry, I realized that we didn't really talk a lot about how to help them during the transition. So during the next few months going into ninth grade. So, you know, a lot of the advice we've given and information that we've given can, you know, we thought of as something we will spread throughout high school, right? And some things like, you know, just expecting them to be pretty much independent will happen more towards the end of high school than right away as they start ninth grade. So I just also wanted to bring up that, you know, we have a few months until school starts, not enough months, but, you know, a few. And so there are some things that we can think about that we can do to prepare our kids. I know for my kids, like everybody else, they've been cooped up for a year, right? And they only go to school a couple of days and half a day. So I think they will need some time with friends over the summer with kids that they will go to high school with next year. And if there are any opportunities to meet new kids, you know, that are going into ninth grade, I will certainly look for them. And then the other thing that occurred to me is that they've outgrown all their clothes. So even just practical things like that, you know, I think we need to kind of anticipate that, you know, August 14th, right? Is that when it is that school starts again? We'll be here before we know it. And so if we have opportunities for kids to go visit the campus if they haven't done it yet, or meet any kids that will be going into ninth grade with them, we should do it. And even very basic things like, I know one of my sons has a friend who's been home for a year, and he may need a little update on his hygiene routine, for example. So, I mean, there are things we need to be thinking about. These are still young kids, and they may need to be reminded that, you kind of want to look your best, nails clipped and maybe get a haircut, all those things that we haven't done very much of in a year. So just wanted to put that out there so we can think about it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and I just put the link to the evaluation survey in the chat, so it's there. Yeah, I think the whole idea of, and Cheryl, you brought this up earlier about how, especially as we've been mostly home and we haven't seen their friends, we have so much, they haven't seen their friends. They may be online a lot more than they would normally be. With friends, and so that kind of transition from that world to in real life is going to be, I think it's something just even to talk about it. They're at an age where we can have conversations with them about this stuff. We can say what feels weird to us. We can ask them about how they're feeling about it. And so I think if anybody, I'm just opening that up. I don't have any great, perfect silver bullets or things to tell you, but if anybody else has any comments or questions or suggestions or thoughts about that, or any other questions, feel free to share those.
Can I make one related comment to that? And Laura, you bring up an excellent point. To help students identify interests, especially if your students are going to a new high school, one where they're not transitioning up, because I do remember that one of the parents said that wanted,
Marcy, let me just interrupt for a second. Marcy, your sound is not very strong.
And one of the ways that you find your village or your people at your high school is through common interest. Oh, sorry, let me turn off the camera and see if it helps. Okay, does that help at all?
I think so, yeah.
Nope, yeah, that didn't help.
No, I think it's good.
Did that help at all?
It's better.
I can also do that. But what I was just gonna say is just find your interest so that, oh, good. So, oh, good, sorry about that. So when they get to school, they find a club, an organization, a program, something with like interests, because they're gonna find their people there. Like they're gonna find like the kids that have kind of like interests. For my daughter, interestingly, it turned out to be water polo. That was a surprise to me. But she found her people there. My son, it was through music. So it just kind of depends. Everyone's very different, and help your child identify what might be on the campus that is of interest to them, because that'll make that experience really rich and really fulfilling for them when they get there. And they won't feel lonely, because that's always a terrifying thing to any high schooler, is to not know someone and not have a friend when they're there.
Yeah.
You mentioned something about, you mentioned
go
something
ahead.
about a tour going over to the school. Is that possible? I mean, where we could get at this late date of being able to.
Well, now I know that right now they're not really allowed to have anybody coming on campus in general. If they're not scheduled to be there. However, I know that your grandson is going to be at Muir, and I believe Dr. Gray, the principal, said at the last online tour that they did that he was willing to give up an in-person tour to families on request. So I think if you were to email him or somebody at Muir, that would be something that you could set up, so you would have a chance, just sort of by appointment to come and take a look at the campus with your grandson.
Okay, great.
Also, Cheryl, look out for any communications from the school before school starts. Typically, when there isn't a pandemic, right? There are opportunities for kids to come on campus, whether it's some kind of it's not really called back to school. It's like a picnic or a social, a day when kids go and get their IDs, get their uniforms or whatever. So look out for that. That typically happens a week before school starts, so you don't want to miss it. I did want to add something. I remembered after, I think it was Marcy that was talking about it. If you haven't already enrolled your child in 9th grade, do it, even if it is your school of residence. And then the counselor will get back to you with a link so you can pick classes. That's a great opportunity to talk with your child about their electives. They don't have a lot of options for 9th grade. They have more as the years go on. But, even just that conversation about, if they have a choice for an academy or this elective versus that, sometimes your child is passionate about something and it'll become obvious. Other times they don't know and they might choose the thing that they think sucks the least. But hey, that's progress, right? I know that's what my kid picked. And so that's a way in. And also, talking about expectations, especially after a year in which they've had absolutely no social life, my expectation is that they will pick one after school thing to do so that they can find their people and they can find something that's not academic that they can fall in love with. Or if they don't fall in love with it, they will know they don't like it. And then they can move on to the next thing and try out various things before school's over. So this is a good time to talk about all that. Go on, explore their website and see what extracurricular activities, what clubs, whatever there are. And you can ask your child to consider picking at least one.
I want to just respond to Terry's question in the chat about, if your child doesn't know anybody or knows one person only at the school where they're going to be starting. I think, it's fine to say, look, everybody's in the same boat. A lot of people don't know anybody coming in, but that's not much comfort, I think, for a kid to hear. I think what I would suggest, and I'm sure other people have suggestions as well, is, find out if the school is doing any kind of virtual or otherwise kinds of opportunities for kids to get together, for families to meet, orientations of any kind. And then I think, one of the things that Penn does is sort of help put parents in touch with other parents at schools. And sometimes a parent or parents through PTA perhaps, or another group can help to sort of connect you with families and at least give you some chance to meet some people. So, and then I think the other suggestion that Marcy Brambilla made about, the minute you join a thing, band, choir, water polo, any kind of activity at all, that's where you're going to really start to meet people and make friends. And I think a lot of kids at high school, even if they come in with friends, are kind of really excited about making new friends at that point. And again, I don't know how comforting that feels when you're telling that to a kid who's not there yet. But I know that it makes a huge difference. My oldest daughter didn't know anybody at the high school when she started, and she got involved with cross country, and they were practicing and they were up, in the morning early running, and she made, a whole collection of people that she knew then. And it made all the difference in the world for her. Other people have thoughts or suggestions about that?
I was just putting in the chat that if they play a fall sport, then they would start doing conditioning during the summer. If they're in band, like a marching band, they'll probably start doing some kind of activities ahead of the year. And then also go and see if the high school has a Facebook page. So at Blair, we have a high school called High School Blairants group. So parents can join that, and then they can, ask like, hey, are we gonna have any get-togethers? Or I have a 9th grader who's wants to swim. Does any of you have a kid that can talk to my kid about swim team or whatever? And then that's a nice way. And then sometimes people offer to let kids get a chance to meet each other kind of informally, not through activities like that. So see if the high school has a Facebook page or a Facebook group where parents are asking questions like that.
I also wanted to suggest about students who are particularly anxious about going to school where they don't feel they know anybody. One idea that you might consider is contacting the ASB representatives. So these are the elected students at the school, and they often are students who are really good at welcoming and looking out for the new students coming in. So it may be a really great way to connect your student with existing students, and they can talk about what it's like. We've done some of those kind of orientations at Blair, and it was really, I think, really helpful for the students to hear from other students directly and make them feel like they were going to know someone when they got to school. And now being able to do it virtually, they'll even see their faces, and they can make some connections with people. So that's another idea that I've seen. My daughter is ASB vice president at Blair. My older daughter and my younger one is on ASB as well. And those were students who were, signing up to reach out and welcome others. So that can be another way to help students feel comfortable when they are going to a school where they feel like they don't know anybody, and they may not know anybody. And that can be very intimidating for a student going into whatever grade. We have a lot of students who came into Blair, not just at 9th grade, but at other grades as well. And it's intimidating. You feel like everybody already has their friends set up and you're the outsider. So look for those who are willing to be welcoming and help connect you. And I think that's a really wonderful thing for the existing students to do, as well as those who are coming in. They can make some friends.
So we said that just talking about how they're not alone isn't enough, right? But I think it's a good opportunity to talk with your kid about just feelings in general. I know, here's my yearbook. I know I've used it. It's my yearbook, see? I've used it with my kids. We've looked at, my yearbook and my husband's yearbooks, and we've talked about what it was like to be in high school, what 9th grade felt like, who we were at that age. I think, as much as they will think that, oh, I'm so different from my parents, they will, in some part of their brain, understand that, that we are people, we went through it and we made it. Look at us. So I think it's just, if you are able to talk with your kids about what you were like at their age and some of the thoughts and feelings you had about it, just to validate their feelings and their thoughts, I think that's a really good thing. And also to have a little fun with it, show them your crazy hair when you were 14 or 15, show them that you had braces too, whatever it is. Just to kind of validate that this is what it is. This is the age, and we all go through it. So just wanted to add that because I have my yearbook here.
Yeah.
And one last thing that Jennifer just reminded me of. I know at Blair we did Viking Days, where we took student volunteers, regardless of whether they were already at the school or coming new to the school. Volunteering at the school is actually a really great way to meet kids because it's very structured. So that intimidation factor of who do I talk to is taken away, because usually there's going to be an adult there to tell you who you're going to talk to. So they're going to be like, you're going to sit with that person and you're going to check people in and you're going to mark off a list. So it's a very structured way to meet other kids and you end up kind of bonding. As a matter of fact, I think my daughter met Kitty's youngest son that way. They were working the ice cone machine or something. I don't know. I don't remember, but I have a picture of them when they were entering in 6th grade and they were making like shaved ice during Viking Days. So it's kind of a really neat structured way for them to know another face on that campus, which can be intimidating. So if those opportunities present themselves, by all means, sign your kid up. They'll love you for it, I'm sure.
I think, also even if you just ask the counselor, or again, as people have suggested, find out what kinds of parent communications people use. You can, if it's not obvious how your kid can get to know people, ask the question, and people will be very responsive. I think most people are really eager to welcome people into the school community, and in some ways we'll be making this community all over again, because we're coming into this unique time. We're coming out of a unique time, I guess. I don't know. I'm just going to put the evaluation program evaluation link in the chat one more time. Any other questions? Any other comments or questions?
I was going to make one more comment, and that is just as a parent. One thing that really helped me was talking to parents whose kids were 2 or 3 years ahead of mine and getting some tips from them on, like, what's the best summer school experience, or when should my kid do this thing, or, all of that kind of thing. I found if I was talking to someone who was had been in it for a couple of years and they had some perspective to provide, that really made me feel like I wasn't getting behind, or I wasn't missing out on some important step I should have been taking that I was not aware of, and learning from people. So that really helped me as a parent feel more confident that I wasn't missing anything. And then it allowed me to guide my students in the direction of finding the things that were going to help them have a successful high school experience and then be prepared for life beyond high school.
I've just put the link in the chat for our Penn's parent ambassador page, so that if you don't know a parent who's already there, that's a place where you can find a contact to get started.
Jennifer, I just wanted to add to what you said. I think for me, in addition to getting actual information from parents who are a little bit ahead, like yourself, talking to other parents who are a little bit more seasoned has helped me kind of gauge how upset I should be about things, or, when I should get more involved, when I should, kind of step back, when I should, encourage my child to advocate for themselves, and when it's like, oh no, we're going to fix this right now. It is so wrong. So, it kind of gives you that sense of what's appropriate as a parent, so you don't overstep when you don't need to. And just knowing that other people's kids have made it and they're doing fine, I think takes some of the anxiety away, or it diminishes it a little bit. So anyway, that's great advice.
Right. Anybody, any other questions? Well, I want to take the moment to thank you all for being here. I want to thank Jeff for hosting us, and Ada for doing the interpretation, and Marcy and Kitty and Marie and Jennifer for contributing their perspectives and experiences, and you all for joining us for this. And I'll just ask one more time, please click on the link in the chat for the program evaluation and take a minute to fill that out. We'd appreciate it. And feel free to email us at any time if you have questions, and we can put you in touch with someone. We will send out an email with the slides and the video recording link and other resource links. So you should be looking for that to come soon. Thank you, and good night, everybody. Have a good.
Thank you, and good luck.
Thank you so much.
And have a great summer.
It's going to be good. It's going to be good.
See you at the other end.
Yeah. All righty.
Okay.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.